Hi everyone, Paul here from FamilyWheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And if you like watching auto trends, you may have noticed that lately there's been a bit of a trend toward really hardcore off-road ready pickup trucks right off the factory floor. Things like the Ford Raptor, the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro. Toyota has released a whole line of TRD Pro vehicles as of late. And if you're kind of a passive observer to this trend, you might think to yourself that the Dodge Ram Power Wagon is kind of jumping in on that trend. But here's the thing, it actually has been doing this for a long time. It was released back in the 1940s after World War II, when soldiers coming back from war said to Dodge that they wanted to drive a truck like the one they were cruising around on the battlefield with. Dodge responded with a truck that was really quite similar to that battle-ready vehicle. It had a winch, it had some pretty good capability, and it looked really badass, and over the years it really has developed a pretty serious cult following. That Power Wagon fell off the radar for a little while in Dodge's lineup, but it returned in 2005 under the Dodge Ram pickup truck brand. Now, new for 2017, we've got a bit of a facelift for the Power Wagon, a new blacked out front grille. The 17-inch blacked out wheels are new for this year, and it's hard to miss all these new decals all around this truck as well, screaming Power Wagon at you. Once you hop inside, the interior has been cleaned up a little bit too. Now, I'm not going to be doing any real hardcore off-roading with this truck this week. There are other channels that can do a better job of that. Instead, we're kind of family focused here, which means that we're going to put this thing through its paces with my family on the road, where 90% of us spend 90% of our time in a vehicle like this. We're also heading out into the mountains for a bit of a family camping trip. We'll throw our trailer behind the Power Wagon to see how it performs on that front as well. That's all this week right here on Family Wheels. Well, if what you're looking for in a truck is a pretty basic vehicle when it comes to creature comforts, but some real off-road prowess, then the base trim of the Power Wagon could be just the ticket for you, because at a starting price of just over $54,000 up here in Canada, yeah, not many creature comforts, but what you are getting is a pretty impressive off-road package, starting with a 6.4 liter V8 Hemi engine. That's a gasoline-powered V8, and when I asked Dodge why there wasn't a Cummins diesel version of this truck available, they said that it's just not as off-road tuned, that engine, that it wouldn't be as good of an off-road performer, that it weighs a lot more, and that it's also much bigger, which means that you wouldn't have space in the engine bay for the 12,000-pound built-in Warn winch, which also comes standard on all trims. We have Goodyear Wrangler Duratrac tires on board, as well as Bilstein shocks, just like we saw in the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro that I was testing a couple of months ago. We also have electronically locking differentials, disconnecting front stabilizer bar, skid plate protection, fantastic wheel articulation, and up to 14.3 inches of ground clearance. It's a pretty impressive list of stuff, and if you are towing with this truck, you also get a Class 5 hitch on board as standard, as well as a trailer braking system. If you want a trailer braking system, by the way, in the Raptor, then you've got to bump up into the luxury package to get it. That comes standard here on this truck. But to get into a truck that's exactly like the one I'm testing here this week, you're going to have to spend 18 grand more on top of that base price. And that's giving you everything from leather seating surfaces to front and rear parking sensors to a backup camera, which I think is pretty important and comes standard on a lot of trucks these days. Dual zone climate control, heated and ventilated front seats. I was surprised that heated seats didn't come standard in this truck, and remote start as well. But it just goes to show you that at the base price, it really is much more of an off-road focused vehicle than a comfortable vehicle. It doesn't have a lot of the creature comforts that you might come to expect in a truck that's coming in at $55,000 these days. Now, as I mentioned off the top, there are a number of changes for 2017. I really like the blacked out front grille. I think that it makes this truck look really slick, but one thing I'm really not so crazy about are all of these decals. Everywhere you look, you see Power Wagon painted across the side of this thing. Dodge says that it's an homage to the Power Wagon of the 70s, and if you like that sort of thing, it might be right up your alley. But to me, I say that let the performance of the truck speak for itself. It looks kind of gaudy, and I think it's overkill, and personally I would much rather do without them. Once you step inside, you're definitely going to know you're still in a Power Wagon as well, because it's embroidered on the seats, it's on the dashboard, it's pretty obvious what you're driving no matter what angle you're looking at. Elsewhere here on the interior, it's pretty good. It's not the best interior that I've come across on a truck, but I do like this stitching and the doors and on the dash. It kind of sets it off a little bit. A number of soft touch surfaces around it kind of make it feel a little bit more high end as well. Seat comfort, kind of middle of the road too. Not the worst I've come across, but I definitely think that the seats in the Titan or in the Tundra are a little bit more comfortable, but that's going to be a personal preference thing. One thing that I'm not so crazy about is the layout of the switchware on the dashboard. It feels a little bit haphazard. It's not particularly intuitive, and I'm finding that I'm looking down a bit more than I'd like this week to adjust climate control and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, when you go to change stations or if you go to input something through the navigation like we have here on our tester, which is an option, the voice recognition functions are really quite poor on this vehicle. Some of the worst that I've come across. I was also disappointed that here I am in a $74,000 truck and there's no telescopic function on the steering wheel. It'll go up and down, but you can't adjust it in and out. And that seems pretty crazy for a truck at this price point. There's also no denying that you're in a pretty serious heavy-duty pickup truck when you get into this thing. It's pretty noisy at highway speed. According to our decibel reader test, we hit 71 decibels this week at 100 kilometers an hour. That's on the noisier end. I think a big part of that is these big knobby tires, but you're also going to get a noisier ride in something that sits this tall. That is something to keep in mind with this vehicle. It sits even taller than the regular 3/4 ton Ram, so if you have shorter people in your family, kids, your wife is short, you've got older parents, they're gonna have a really hard time getting in and out of this thing. My wife's have a struggle this week, and I've had to help my son up. There's no way he's getting into this thing on his own. So yes, the ride is a little bit harsher, noise here in the cabin is a little bit louder, but it's a 3/4 ton, right? So it should have more capability than its half-ton competitors. But here's the thing, the Power Wagon has so much off-road equipment on board that you actually lose a lot of its 3/4 ton capability. I mean, if we compare this truck to the same 3/4 ton Ram with a 6.4 liter Hemi V8 on board without the Power Wagon package, that regular Ram really does blow this truck out of the water. Let me break down the numbers for you. We have a payload capacity here in the Power Wagon of 1,470 pounds. In the regular 3/4 ton Ram, it has 2,922 pounds of payload capacity. That's what you can put in the box. In terms of towing capacity, the regular Ram can tow over 15,000 pounds, while here in the Power Wagon, we can only tow 9,960 pounds. That's just slightly more than the half-ton TRD Pro Tundra that I was driving around a couple of months ago. You see what I'm talking about here? You have the harsh ride and the noisy ride, but you don't quite get the capability I was hoping for out of this vehicle. That said, it does tow really quite nicely. I mean, we had 3,000 pounds towing behind this thing, which is far from its maximum capability, but I could barely notice that this truck was towing anything. Our fuel economy also didn't budge that much with our trailer towing behind it. I mean, granted, fuel economy in this truck isn't going to be fantastic. We're averaging this week with city driving, highway driving, and a lot of towing as well, about 20.2 liters per 100 kilometers. But I mean, we compare this to our Volvo, which has a 3.2 liter turbocharged engine on board. It has to work really hard to tow that trailer, whereas this is just kind of purring along. We actually saw better fuel economy numbers out of this truck under load than we do in our Volvo station wagon, believe it or not. One thing that I do really miss in this vehicle that we had in the Raptor when I was doing the tow test in it a couple of weeks ago was that 360-degree wraparound camera. And it gave you a bit of peace of mind. The fact that this truck doesn't even come with a backup camera on its base level trim is really quite surprising to me. And if it were me, I would probably spend that extra bit of money to get into that preferred customer package that costs about $5,000, but does give you that backup camera as well as parking sensors, because you kind of lose track of where this truck is. You can't really see off the front end of it. They do make a big difference. Well, here in the second row of the Power Wagon, you've got one option for configurations, and that's this crew cab that I'm sitting in. You can't get into the much larger mega cab that we see in other Ram models in this more 4x4 oriented truck. So, say compared to the Super Crew cab that you get in the Raptor or the Crew Max cab that you can get in the TRD Pro Tundra, it is a little bit more pinned in back here for full-size adults like myself. 6'2" though, and I've still got enough headroom, and my legroom is just starting to max out when I've set the driver's seat for someone who's 6 foot tall. Also really good for car seats. My son's front facing now, and he's been perfectly happy this week. And even when we flip this car seat into rear facing mode, we've still got 28 inches from the back of the front seat cushion up to the glove box. And that puts it right in line with that Mazda CX-9 7-passenger SUV that we were driving around last week. Now, unlike its half-ton competitors, the Power Wagon can seat 6 people in a pinch. The center armrest in the front row can flip up, revealing a pretty tight 6th spot. And it's so tight because there's also an old school style transfer case lever that's meant to throw back to the old Dodge 4x4s from years gone by. You don't see that in regular Dodge Rams. It looks cool, but that 6th spot, you're not going to want to go for a long road trip as a 6th passenger in this vehicle, that's for sure. Also, speaking of kind of uncomfortable spots, this center seat in the second row also has a bit of a hump. So unlike the Ford Raptor, which has a completely flat load floor, this has a bit of a hump. That's inconvenient if you want to try and stow things in here like tools, put the family dog in here. When you flip these seats up, it's not flat. It's a bit of a pain compared to the competitors. And it has this kind of cheap feeling clunky shelf system that flips down to create a quasi-flat load floor, but it takes a lot of steps. It's a bit annoying, and it just doesn't feel like it's really going to stand the test of time. There are a couple of nice little sort of storage nooks in the back row here of the Ram though, including this under carpet storage bin that I only found when I went to go clean this truck out, that really is very deep and can hold a lot of stuff. That's on both sides. A nice little hidden away storage area. Again, lots of little nooks in this truck to find. You're going to have to hunt them out when you go to buy this thing. Now, another thing that you can't change in terms of configuration on the Power Wagon is size of box. It's only available with a 6-foot 4-inch box, unlike the irregular Ram where you can get an 8-foot version. Now, I know that people in the trades like often to go to the longer bed so that they can fit all their gear in there, and while this does focus on off-roading, and the shorter the truck, the better the off-roader, it would be nice to have a bit more flexibility in terms of configuration so that more people can get into this truck and get exactly the vehicle they need. Something else that was a little bit irksome to me here on the back end of this vehicle is, check this out. Ooh, the lack of a soft open tailgate. When we compare this to the competitors out there, so many of them now offer a nice soft open tailgate. That was a bit of a surprise to me when it came flying down for the first time when I tested it earlier this week. But one system that I was not so crazy about when I first got this truck that's really grown on me is this Ram box system. It's a $1,200 option that you can get on the regular Ram as well, and it's built right into the box here. It flips up and reveals a ton of space. It's secure, it's dry, it locks with your key fob, and yet look here, I've got my camera bag, which is pretty big. I've got a backpack, I've got my full-size tripod. Earlier this week I tried fitting a circular saw in there, no problem at all. So unlike the similar kind of system that we see in the Nissan Titan, which I kind of panned last year when I checked it out, it actually works really well. You can fit a lot of stuff into this thing, and it could work for people who are in the trades. Do keep in mind with the Ram box system though, unlike that Nissan Titan system, once you've got it installed, that's kind of it, and it does gobble up just a little bit of extra space inside of the box itself. So if you were looking for actual box space, then perhaps consider avoiding this option, but I really like it. Well, the Dodge Ram Power Wagon has a great story behind it. I love the heritage of this truck, and I love the fact that it hasn't lost sight of what it was originally supposed to be. An outdoor person's vehicle that can get you deep into the backcountry, into your favorite hunting or fishing spot without any drama. It's very capable. But the thing that Dodge really focuses on with the Power Wagon is that it's a 3/4 ton, and that it's going to be so much more capable than its half-ton competitors like the Raptor or the TRD Pro Tundra. But when you look at the numbers, even though this does have a harsher ride and the interior is not as refined, it actually isn't that much more capable than its half-ton competitors once you throw all of this hardcore off-roading 4x4 equipment on board. So if it were my money and I really did want to stick with the Dodge brand of vehicles, I'd probably wind up buying a regular 3/4 ton Ram and then speccing it out just the way I like, with the parts that I need for my off-roading skills and the kind of areas that I want to get myself into, and you wouldn't have to deal with these rather showy decals, which again, I'm not so crazy about. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the Power Wagon, how you think it stacks up to its half-ton competitors, and whether it's a truck that you're considering. Please leave a comment below, subscribe while you're at it, and then check out familywheels.ca where we put all of our reviews. Next time I see you, we are in the Volkswagen Atlas, brand new vehicle from the Volkswagen family, their first ever crack at a full-size 7-passenger SUV. Make sure to check that out in 7 days from now. Until then, have a great week.